lot of people don't realize what's really going on. They view life as a bunch of unconnected incidents and things. They don't realize that there's this, like, lattice of coincidence that lays on top of everything. I'll give you an example, show you what I mean. Suppose you're thinking about a plate of shrimp. Suddenly somebody will say, like, plate or shrimp or plate of shrimp out of the blue. No explanation. No point in looking for one either. It's all part of cosmic unconsciousness. You need a lot of acid, Miller, back in the hippie days? I'll give you another instance. You know the way everybody's into weirdness right now? Books in all the supermarkets about Bermuda triangles, UFOs, how the Mayans invented television, that kind of thing. I don't read them books. Well, the way I see it, it's exactly the same. There ain't no difference between a flying saucer and a time machine. People get so hung up on specifics, they miss out on seeing the whole thing.
You are listening to Dark Notes Podcast. I'm Lisa, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Shane.
Hello.
Today's episode is called
Supernatural Sex.
And a little disclaimer, this episode contains bedroom invaders, attacks, and other not always pleasurable accounts. So if you are sensitive to that, skip this episode.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the Love and Saucers documentary about David Huggins. He's a man who's had a lifetime of very bizarre paranormal experiences.
Yes.
With Greys, Bigfoot, all kinds of stuff.
little hairy being.
Yeah. What do you call it? The hairy guy or the little guy?
Little hairy being.
Yeah. With yellow eyes. I love that.
Yes.
So the documentary starts out, and it's one of those, I knew I was going to love it in the first 5 minutes. He's 72 at the time of the filming. Lives in a small apartment in Hoboken, New Jersey. And immediately you see his massive VHS collection of sci-fi and horror. And there's a John Lilly book laying on the coffee table or something. So I knew I liked this guy right away. Just a neat, nice guy. Seems like, works part-time at a deli as an artist, has really good artwork about his experiences. And so we'll just get into it. It was great. I loved it.
I did too.
Cool. So David Huggins grew up in the South. I think, was it Alabama?
Oh my God.
We still forgot.
We keep saying we have to go back to find out. All right. He's in the South.
Somewhere in the deep South. Yeah, I remember that. And
Georgia. I wrote it down.
Yeah.
All right.
So his first encounter was at 8 years old. He's in the woods by his house. And which
is normal. Right?
Yeah, totally. I spent my whole childhood in the woods. But he comes across a Bigfoot with yellow eyes that telepathically speaks to him. Calls him by name. And not too much later, he was by the barn at his house and sees a giant praying mantis type creature.
That's fucking scary.
I know. And it sprays him with liquid,
right?
And then he passes out. And from what I remember, I think most of these encounters ends with him passing out.
They do.
Yeah.
Yes.
If not all of them, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them.
Right.
So, yeah, that. What do you think? Out of all the beings, that's got to be the scariest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think real praying mantis are scary.
Yeah, I do too. It would. I would like the giant praying mantis to be my friend, and
right.
But I could still probably never look him in the eyes. Like, I'd have to look away. But so yeah, then another time he's in a field by his house, and he sees these 6 what's known as the gray aliens peeking out at him, and he faints and wakes up, and they're all standing around him, and he faints again. Throughout his life, they keep visiting him, these little guys. Well, he said they wore blue jumpsuits, but they're the typical classic gray alien, the
right. And he expressed that they didn't seem hostile.
Right, totally. Yeah. And they even he said that he went in their crafts, and I think he said there were different types of crafts. But that he was allowed on them several times, and that they seemed to go somewhere, but he had no idea where.
Right.
That one of the things that makes you like this guy so much is that it's just matter of fact. He's like, look, this is what happens. I can't. Right. I have no fucking idea what right. It is. What they are, where we went,
I'm telling you what happened to me.
Right. And it's such a I don't know, it just made me like the guy better.
I know what you mean. It seems real. He's real. Like,
yeah.
I'm just telling you what I experienced.
Right. And
I'm not saying I know anything or have all the answers.
Right.
But here's what happened.
Absolutely. And that attitude it makes me feel that he's mentally healthy.
Right.
That he's not trying to piece together a belief system out of
or make money or
yeah exactly. And
his artwork is really, really interesting.
It is. I love it. I'm still trying to pick out a piece. I think I gotta go with the yellow eye Bigfoot. That's just too amazing.
Yeah.
What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
Well, we're about to talk about it.
Oh, cool.
I thought that was well represented. I thought he did, I like the painting or the picture, the painting he did.
One of these gray aliens who was, I think, a little taller than the rest.
I think so too.
Yeah, a female gray alien named Crescent takes his virginity.
Yes.
I think it was in the field by his house.
Yes.
And she mounts him and rides him until he climaxes, and he looks in her eyes and passes out.
Yes.
Yeah. And he Yeah, in the documentary, he looks back on that as a fond memory.
Yes, and not only that, it turned into like a relationship.
Yeah, he keeps at 19. He leaves home to go to art school in New York City, and these visitations keep happening in his apartment in New York City, and I think even out in the city sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
and he said he knew when they were coming, everything would get quiet, even a busy city street. You know.
Yes.
Which is very odd, very weird.
Very odd.
Yeah. But yeah, the guy, I mean, the besides coming away believing him, that this guy definitely went through these experiences. I come away liking the guy.
Me too.
You know, he's got a adult son now who seems to love his dad, seems to
Right.
respect him, not think of him as a kook, and nobody in the documentary does. His neighbors love him, his employer loves him. It's just
he has odd experiences.
Yeah, he's just this guy that something happened, and yeah, I love the documentary. I love
Me
it.
too.
Yeah, highly recommend it.
And it's on what, Amazon Prime and YouTube? I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. I think it's for free.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, check it out on YouTube. It's great.
All right, and then we looked up some other sexual encounters with beings from UFOs, right?
Yes.
And we used Brad Steiger books for that.
Yeah.
Otherworldly Affairs and Real Encounters, Different Dimensions, and Otherworldly Beings. Dear Mr. Steiger, a typical letter begins. I am not a nut. I'm on the dean's list at blank college, majoring in physics. This is my real name, and if you are suspicious of me, you can check me out. Last summer, I saw a flying saucer at close range. It hovered over my car for several miles as I drove to my parents' farmhouse. It was definitely a metallic object. Shortly after that sighting, I was aware of something in my bedroom one night as I was preparing for bed. I could see nothing, but I could not shake a feeling of uneasiness. I was not yet asleep when I felt a pressure on the bed beside me. When I sat up, I saw nothing, but I felt something fondling my breast. I wanted to scream to get out of bed, but I was unable to move. I remember nothing more until I awakened the next morning, but I have a reason to believe that something made love to me while I slept. I believe this incident was associated in some way with my sighting of the UFO. Do you want to go next?
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is also from that Steiger book, the newer one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Last year, this author received a letter from a UFO recipient that related another example of the clinical interest certain flying saucer occupants have in the sex act of Homo sapiens. Don't think I'm some kind of nut, the letter begins in a familiar plea. I never did believe in UFOs, but here is my experience. I will not reveal my name, but I live in Las Vegas. My hobby is women, and since I am married, I must be very careful. On July 2nd, 1968, a girl and I were parked on a very lonely desert road. We had a blanket on the ground and were very busy in a certain act when a very, very hot wave fell on us. I looked up to see two men, both about 5 feet 6 inches tall, standing beside us in a soft light. They had on some kind of coveralls that looked like diver suits. Their faces didn't look strange, but they had no hair on their heads. They spoke a language I couldn't understand. Behind them, hovering about 20 feet off the ground, was a craft that had a circle of small lights around its middle. The two men raised us up by our arms, and they felt all over our naked bodies. They pushed the backs of our knees and made us kneel, and one of them cut off some of my girl's hair and put it in a container and pointed toward the sky. Then they walked beneath the ship, stood in the circle of a spotlight, and they were gone. The UFO disappeared from sight in 10 seconds.
That's fucking terrifying.
Oh my God.
Oh, shit. All right. In UFO Warning, New Zealand author Jon Stewart told of a sexual assault on his pretty young research assistant, which came after the two of them had seen a grotesque, misshapen entity while investigating a UFO report. Stewart stated that he felt the young woman should have stayed with him and his wife, but she had insisted that she would be all right in her own home. Barbara, the young woman, had been incorrect. She immediately noticed a peculiar odor the moment she stepped into her room. She undressed, bathed, but could not free her mind of the impression that unseen eyes followed her every move. Then, as she crushed out a cigarette and turned to put on her pajamas, an invisible something touched her on the shoulder. She found herself unable to move. The horror had begun. For 2.5 hours, an unseen entity had its way with her body.
Oh, wow.
Sorry. I concluded that the thing had been solid, even if invisible. Barbara told Stewart later, there was, of course, no way of knowing exactly what it was like, and I tried to form a picture in my mind to fit it, but I gave up in fear. I got into bed and eventually fell into a deep sleep filled with nightmares. With the light of day, I again looked at my body and shuddered when I saw the scratches. It had really happened after all. Barbara's flesh had been left covered with scratches from its contact with the rough-skinned space-age incubus. I thought that one was well.
Wow, that's really good, yeah.
In November 2010, we received an intriguing, detailed account of the UFO abduction encounters of Lee Peterson, a mental health technician. Was that weird? Did you hear something? No. A mental health technician at an inpatient psychiatric hospital in Oklahoma. And this is a really detailed account, but we're going to the sexual portion.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's really good if you look it up. Z. Peterson warned us that some of his abduction experience was sexually explicit and graphic. He said that he had debated if he could find the words to abbreviate the additional formation or else leave it out altogether. In the end, he decided not to sacrifice the more functional elements of his disclosure for some small measure of personal modesty. Okay. And this is the person telling the story. As I studied their bodies, I stood in front of them and knelt occasionally to see them more clearly. They had a rather large organ that looked very much like a huge prehensile salmon orange tongue curling and extending out from beneath folds of skin.
Oh my God.
Not unlike the human female's vulva. This tongue was approximately 10 inches long and 4 inches wide at its thickest point, and appeared to consist of a very dense muscular tissue. The being explained that it was much like a clitoris or prostate on humans. It actually curled around my forearm when I touched it. It was covered in small, smooth, shiny round nodules all over its dorsal surface. Sorry.
Wow.
Crazy, right? This is like insane. All this time, I felt both nervous and curious. At a moment, I felt almost ashamed because it aroused me, actually. It aroused me mentally and physically because it was so fascinating to me. The being again sent me a wave of calm and told me nothing we are doing here is wrong. You need not feel ashamed or bad inside. This is about learning and growing.
Wow.
Right? This
Yeah.
is like, they're cool, right? I was still feeling very odd about this, but my curiosity was far too strong to back away again. As I looked back down, I could see what appeared to be a rather large male organ protruding from the genital folds. It looked very similar to a human penis, except that it had a slightly different shape. It was jet black and shiny, smooth, and about the size of my entire forearm.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Sorry.
Is this, sorry to interrupt.
Uh-huh.
Is this a woman?
It's a
This is
man.
happening to? Oh, okay.
It's a man. And what I should have said, the beings are aquatic. They're in a pool.
Oh, wow.
And, he's approached them and is checking them out.
Yeah.
Okay, penis. That's where I'm at, right? Where am I going? Oh, jet black and shiny, smooth and about the size of my forearm. Okay. Below the tongue-like organ was a slit that appeared analogous to a human female's vagina. Almost identical to humans. It had a rectum just after a small bump on what appeared to be a perineum-like region of their anatomy. They explained that their species had always been this way, their sex, as they put it, undifferentiated. Thus, their bodies had both male and female qualities. They could become pregnant and impregnate one another.
Oh, wow.
They formed mated pairs like humans do, and the idea of sex was seen as something both sacred and spiritual. They made love face to face, belly to belly in the water, and they interpenetrated one another simultaneously. All of this was transmitted instantly through their skin into mine. We were very close now, and our legs touched. The beings made their intention clear to me. They wanted to touch me too, but they wanted to make sure that I was absolutely clear that this was not a sexual act, but a mental, spiritual, and emotional one that just happened to have physical components. I felt one of them reach their hand down and come to rest with the smooth, warm pads of their fingers now directly on my perineum, known as the root chakra, or the root gate of the chakra. At this point, I felt information being read from my body, from my chakra, and essentially from all the cells of my body. They told me that they knew my entire life, every cell in my body, and even my entire family. They also explained that this process required a great deal of openness, and I felt another huge wave of induced calm pulse through my entire body, pushing me nearly to the point of sleep. They explained that this act would allow for direct communication from their chakra system into and through my own. They had me place my hand in the same place on their body and hold it there. I began to feel a sensation very much like an orgasm building in my genitals and continuing to move through my spine until my entire body felt like I was going to have a massive orgasm.
Oh, wow.
Every cell in my body filled with indescribable ecstasy. I did not have an orgasm, but the sensation continued to build to a very uncomfortable level, and I could feel my body beginning to shake and shudder in waves of tremendous energy. The being continued to send waves of calm into me through my chakra. By this time, my eyes had rolled backward into my head and I was convulsing. As the feeling built and built many times over, I felt suddenly like I was going to leave my body altogether, like I might simply fall out of my own body into the blue sky above me. Then I lost all comprehension of my body altogether. It was as if I was no longer myself, but a combination of the being and myself, just thoughts and feelings pulsing back and forth. A dynamic communication with consciousness. I had no contact with my bodily senses, and the very concept of time seemed to not apply to this experience. As we hung there feeling suspended in a great void of light and energy, I felt great volumes of information being fed into my spirit chakra from the being. In fact, the information was being sent back and forth freely, like waves of energy and light. Gradually, I began to perceive a feeling of instability within my portion of the link. And I then felt my body again, being overcome with the tidal waves of energy. It felt as if my body was being dragged behind the wake of a huge, fast-moving ship. Like the energy might literally tear me apart, even unto an atomic level. My body could no longer withstand all the energy, and I was beginning to overload. I felt as if physical death was imminent. What a horrible feeling that is. The being knew it, and in an instant I was let go. I can recall a violent flash of blinding light and an indescribable sound, feeling, something like a horrible snap. As I was slammed back into my bed, I awoke shaking and crying, dizzy, and completely overwhelmed with emotion, naked and covered in sweat. That was an intense one. That was like crazy.
That's heavy. I really like that one. Honestly, it sounds, so much of that sounded like a really good MDMA trip.
Oh yeah,
like when you get the good pure shit, but with minus the aquatic entity part. I never, but yeah, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And again, if you read the whole thing, not just the sexual or touching part,
Yeah,
I think the beings are from Sirius.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That seems to come up a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first thing I ever read about the Sirius connection was Cosmic Trigger by Robert Anton Wilson, and he spent about a 3-month period where he thought he was telepathically communicating with beings from Sirius.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he started the it was an experiment, and what he did to kick it off was Sirius is closest to the Earth. I think they call it the dog days. It starts on like July 23rd.
Right.
And so on July 23rd, he dropped acid and performed a Crowley ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that's what kicked it off for like 3 months.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah. And anyway, sorry.
No. This is what we do.
Yeah.
This is what we're supposed to do.
Um,
But so there's a lot of information that came through that 3-month period. That's in the
yeah.
book.
Yeah. And there was a trickster aspect too. He said that he would be in crowds, like walking down the street in Berkeley, and he would hear a voice in his head that said, "See that guy to the left? That guy's name is James." And he'd go up to the guy and be like, "Hey, is your name James?" He'd be like, "Yeah, how'd you know?"
Oh shit.
Said it did stuff like that constantly.
Yeah, then it's kind of like, do I like this? Not like this?
Yeah,
This
yeah.
Yeah.
And it slowly, I guess, just faded away. But one of the reasons I was so fascinated with Robert Anton Wilson was he had that in all of his works. He would, even in the introduction, he would be like, "I'm not saying I know what this is. I'm trying to not form a belief system about it. I'm just reporting what,
reporting what happened.
Yeah.
Right.
And
what I experienced.
Right. And he along with Brad Steiger, would warn against people kind of willy-nilly getting involved in the occult,
right?
Without having a heavy degree of self-discipline and good mental health.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I think I even emailed Brad Steiger one time, and years ago before he died, and because Wilson had quoted him in Cosmic Trigger saying that Steiger said that. Right. I think the Brad Steiger quote was, "The mental institutions are filled with people who weren't ready for dabbling in the occult." And so I emailed Steiger and asked him, I said, "Here's this quote I read." I said, could you tell me a little bit more about that?" He's like, "Dude, every book I've written testifies to that fact." Right. and I think he wrote like 190 books. Yeah.
Very important piece.
Yeah. Interesting thing to remember.
And so we looked at this, and then we, probably the first movie to come to anyone's mind when we're talking about bedroom invaders.
The Entity.
Yeah. So we had to, we had to go there next.
Yeah. I love Barbara Hershey.
I do too.
I think she is fantastic.
Yeah, I love her too.
Almost everything I've seen her in.
Same.
Yeah. But I am so fucking bored with that movie.
I know you are.
I've had fond memories of it.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, yeah, The Entity. Yeah.
It was a powerful movie the first time I watched it, which was years ago, and the first thing I remember is the soundtrack. It just so intense, and but there's beautiful parts too. But during the attacks, there's a certain score played that is just terrifying.
Yes, it's uncomfortable, right?
It is. It's kind of like the score in The Exorcist. It causes anxiety. This music is very, very uncomfortable and powerful. But
so it did work well, the music, and then her just doing the body motions. There's no other actor like attacking her.
Exactly.
It's that uncomfortable music, and then her just acting that out, and it's like,
powerful.
Yeah,
powerful. And it's the feeling watching it is just, oh my God, you feel so bad for this woman, and but you don't even realize, there's nobody else there,
right?
This is you're
like, hey, totally lady, there's convinced. No one there.
Yeah. You're totally convinced,
right?
And
but you did watch it a few times to get ready for the episode, so you are done. You're officially done.
I don't know. I'm not. I'm really I think it's a good movie. It's just
Right.
It's a slow burn. It really
Mhm.
is. And but yeah, so I'm kind of like half and half on it. I don't want to watch it again, but it's
For a long time.
yeah, yeah, for a long time. But it was great to watch it again and to watch the new Blu-ray of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, uh, I'd highly
And
recommend it. You
and
know,
do we just want to do like a brief what the movie's about, just in case they haven't heard? I didn't
yeah,
want to go into her too much, and I think we both agreed on that, just because it's so overdone, her case.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but it's based on a true story.
Yes,
Right.
right. I don't
And
have any of the
it's
details. Do you have the details?
it's a single mother.
Yeah,
Oh, I wish I would have wrote down it took place in California.
yeah,
Um, it's a single welfare mom and with 3 children,
yeah,
2 girls and a boy. The boy's the oldest.
yeah.
And basically she just starts getting attacked in her bedroom. It starts in her bedroom.
Yeah.
I do know that in the movie she wore, and I think I asked you about this because I didn't
Was
watch
it
it. I read the book. She wore a
in
regular robe, but in the book it's a red robe.
and in the movie it's a blue silk
Yeah, they
satin
changed
type
that up a
robe?
little bit. In the
Yeah,
book it's red.
yeah.
And in the book she has this elaborate, ornate bed, like this huge bed with angels.
Oh wow.
That was already there when she moved in, which
Yeah.
is just an interesting little part. And I don't think that's in the movie. I don't.
No, they
But
never. Yeah. I wonder
and so
maybe it would have just been overload to throw that into. I don't know.
yeah, and we'll go
Yeah.
through this quickly. Just sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. It's fine. I love it.
Okay. And then so she gets attacked, raped by something she can't see.
Raped. Yeah.
Oh shit. I'm sorry, and I'll cut that out. I wanted you to read the police report because the boyfriend, there's the police report that the book starts out with. That does the movie doesn't, does it?
I can.
No.
Well, there's
A scene that kind of mentions it.
with fucking Mo Green.
Right.
Yeah, and he there it
Like a
isn't a
detail.
police report, but the doctor, her doctor who ends up caring about her deeply and trying to kind of steer her away from the paranormal part of it and
Right.
trying to convince her that this is mental illness on her part, you know.
Right.
And he is speaking with, I'm going to call him Mo Green because he was Mo Green in The Godfather, but he's speaking with Mo Green after the incident that he witnessed, and where the entity rapes her in front of him, and when he tries to intervene, the entity pushes him back and assaults him. But if I'm not mistaken, the scene in the movie is that Mo Green explains what happens to the doctor in the police station. And the doctor, he tells the doctor, look, there was somebody there. This wasn't her sexual repression.
Right. Yes, that's what the police
manifesting.
report is. Yep.
Yeah, this was an entity, an invisible entity there that pushed me away. This is what happened,
Right. At first I thought I heard her moaning, whatever. I thought whatever. And then, but it was so realistic looking, even though I couldn't see anybody. Yeah.
Oh wow, I need to read that. But yeah, that's the
that he smashed it with a chair or something, but of course it hit her.
That was in the movie. Yeah, that was
okay,
definitely
good.
In the movie. And yeah, that's a good point, because that's one of the best themes of the movie is that this the movie starts out, she's totally alone, and even her teenage son doesn't believe this is
Right.
an invincible. Everyone, her best friend, her teenage son, her doctor, everyone, even the paranormal investigators at first don't believe her. They, and slowly everybody in the movie is convinced because they get to witness it. So that's a very powerful piece of the movie. And,
yes, it is.
Yeah.
And then just from the book a little bit, I did not watch the movie again if they haven't figured that out because I couldn't find it online.
Yeah,
but
it is hard to find. Yeah.
Yeah, right? I thought it would be easy.
Yeah.
But in the book, it does, like, she gets attacked a couple times, ends up at her girlfriend Cindy's.
Yes.
In the middle of the night. Yeah. Cindy, lets her and the kids in, but then, when they're sitting up after the kids are settled, like, what's going on? Why are you here in the middle of the night? You know what I mean? You gotta tell them something, what's going on. She ends up explaining to her that, or she wouldn't tell her. At first, she doesn't tell her the first night. And then the next day, Cindy's like, are you on drugs? Like, she's trying to guess, you know what I mean? Is it your boyfriend? Is she's trying to figure what's going on. And she says to her, I was raped. So she's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like, let me get you help. Did you make a police report? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, because there was somebody there. You know what I mean? And then your friend's like, what do I do with that information? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she stays at Cindy's for like a week. And then Cindy's husband starts to get like, okay, come on. How long are they staying? Staying here, dude? Like,
yeah. That's a little different in the movie. It's funny, I guess, because of time constraints. In the movie, she goes to stay at her friend's house, and with the husband, her friend and her husband, and they're getting ready to leave to go out to dinner or something, and the stuff immediately starts raising hell in the house, breaking windows, smashing plates, and they run back in, and the friend witnesses it and sees that she was telling the truth, that she wasn't doing this, and she yells at her husband, no, she tells her, I believe you now, I saw that, so
gotcha.
Yeah, which is a powerful scene in the movie because the relief is huge on that somebody finally believes her.
Yes, the character, what's really great about the character in the book is she questions herself over and over, like,
she does,
like,
yeah. It's and the well, maybe I like this movie more than I thought. And by the way, her name in the movie is Carla Moran.
Mm-hmm.
Is that her real name?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, her real name in real life?
Yeah.
No, it's Doris Byther.
That's right, Doris Byther. Yeah, in the movie it's Carla Moran or Moran, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Oh, so she leaves Cindy's after a week because the husband, and it shows like a very real argument in the bedroom, like, Cindy's like, oh, come on, like, what am I supposed to do? It's my friend. And he's like, what the hell's even going on with her? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like her house burned down. Like, what?
Yeah.
So, and the main character hears that argument, so she makes it easy for Cindy the next day. And she's like, hey, we're going to head back home. Thank you so much. She kind of does that. So Cindy doesn't have to kick her out. Yeah. And she tells Cindy, because Cindy's still worried, she's like, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? I know you're afraid to go back there. And she says, I'm going to go to my mother's in Pasadena.
Yeah.
And then we find out that her parents were wealthy.
Oh, wow.
She's from wealthy parents with rose gardens and shit, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And wealthy parents who are also religious.
Yeah.
And that want her to be proper and, the proper wealthy, whatever. Like they want her to be they want to be proud of her.
Yeah.
And it even talks about how empty and dead her house is because her parents really probably want to be divorced, but they don't just because they have a daughter. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the house is dead.
Yeah.
And even I guess because they're religious, and I guess it's just a cold environment where nobody really talks or anything. And even when she gets her period, she doesn't know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nobody's talking to her about any of this stuff. And she buries her bloody panties in the rose garden.
Oh, wow.
Because she just kind of, I don't know, freaks out or oh
Yeah.
God, and then and then shortly after that, she masturbates for the first time in her room and describes it as this kind of letting go, detached kind of thing, and then her mom finds her panties in the rose garden, and then I don't know, they go through this whole thing of, I don't know, maybe a really bad talk about the birds and the bees.
Yeah. Yeah.
From really dead people that,
Yeah.
and she ends up being rebellious and
of course,
liking
their fucking parents.
Exactly, and liking bad boys or older men
Yeah.
And so she ends up hooking up with this older guy on a motorcycle that hangs out at the high school.
Yeah. Yeah, they go into that in the movie too.
Okay, yeah. And that's the husband. Yeah, that's who she ends up leaving with at 16.
Yeah,
so the kid's father, I guess. Yeah.
Right. And they go into that briefly when the doctor is asking her questions to get her background out of her. Yeah, so they touch on all that.
And then again, back to the real life account, according to the researcher, she didn't really share any information about her past. She was very kind of close-lipped about that, I think. So I don't know if any of that is factual.
Oh, wow.
It might just be made up from the guy writing the book, he had to give her a pass,
Yeah. I'm not sure. Eventually what happens is the paranormal group, which is a university funded project with loads of equipment and intelligent people involved. Mm-hmm. They set up almost like a studio, mm-hmm. An apartment within a gymnasium,
right,
where they can trap the entity. So they have her go in and sleep, almost like a sleep study, and witness the phenomenon,
right,
which is really good part of the movie, and it's the very interesting part of the story and the movie was how these entities would manifest. These sometimes it would be electricity and green lights.
Yes.
And
in the real case, there's photos you can look. Yeah, all the lights they captured.
Yeah, which if you listen to future episodes, you'll know we're very interested in lights. And but one of the one of the coolest things that they never hit on in the movie,
Mhm.
that the son, years later, someone interviewed the son, and he said, yeah, all that shit really happened, you know. And
Right.
he said it happened so much they almost got used to it. And one of the freakiest things he said was they'd just be sitting there, the whole family, watching TV,
Right.
and that these fucking guys would just walk by the TV.
That's scary.
These human forms, these silhouettes, and it's like, that scares me more than any of this other stuff, you know.
That is scary.
Yeah, they you know, it's funny what gets put into the movie, but I would have loved to seen that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I guess they have to make choices, right?
yeah,
Like,
they do. So the manifestations in the movie are all super intense.
Right.
You know, which I understand. But yeah. And do you want to talk about how we both think Barry Taft is a douche?
And I'm gonna leave that in.
Yeah.
Yes, and we'll even play a clip.
Yeah.
There's a clip.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems kind of full of himself.
Yeah. Paranormal researchers can be assholes too. But yeah, super interesting account, super interesting story. Yeah. I can't remember. I think this is from the older Steiger book. And it's about masturbation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to go first or me?
So I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay.
Real accounts.
Yes. Shortly after I had completed work on my casebook about out-of-body experience, The Mind Travelers was the name of the book, I was told this story by a man who recalled being, quote, cured of masturbatory practices when he slipped into an out-of-body experience. I was just 13, he told me, and I had been obtaining sexual release via self-gratification for several months. One time, this guy in the YMCA gave us a lecture about how masturbation will lead us to loss of strength, virility, when you really needed it, and how it could even make you have a nervous breakdown or go nuts if you did it often enough. You know, it was one of those old-fashioned scare the hell out of them, but don't bother to really explain anything types of talks. I figured the guy was just a holy Joe giving us a line. He was about 22, and we knew he was studying for the ministry. So I figured, you know, he just had to say things like that as part of his practicing for the pulpit. So anyway, that night I went to see this sexy movie without my folks knowing it. By today's standards, of course, it was like the Bobbsey twins nuzzling noses with Rebecca of Sunny Book Farm. I don't even get those references. But everything is relative, you know, and it boiled my brains and my tender young testes. I went to my room as soon as I got home and headed right for the covers and lights out. I was fantasizing like hell and rubbing my penis for all it was worth. Then I came and went at the same time. I mean, I must have been the potency of that adolescent orgasm that just shot me right out of my body.
Shit.
I could feel myself floating up the ceiling like I was a crazy balloon on a string. Then I could look down and see myself lying still on the bed. I mean, I could see my backside. I had always wondered what I looked like from the back, and now I was able to see. Geez, I thought, not only did I go insane, I died.
Oh my God.
Then my body on the bed below gave a long sigh, took a deep breath, and I was back inside my body. I didn't masturbate again for years. That's a good.
That's a good one. All right, here's one. About 2 years ago at 11 o'clock one night, A Wisconsin co-ed was lying in her bed, drifting off to sleep. With some irritation, she became aware that something was pulling on her bedclothes, then tugging at her leg. She opened her eyes to see a hideous, hairy creature grinning lustfully at her and pulling her slowly across the bed. I was paralyzed, she told one of the author's correspondents. I could neither move nor cry out. There was no mistaking what plans the grotesque male creature had in mind for me. Then I thought very intensely, God save me, and there was a brilliant flash of light at the ceiling, and the creature disappeared. I wore a cross for a long time after that. I thought that one was pretty crazy.
That's pretty good, yeah.
I had a spirit lover when I was much younger, a female medium told this author in confidence, and I wish that I had never allowed it to come into me. You see, I can no longer be satisfied by a mortal man. Sexual intercourse with my spirit lover was beyond description. I have never achieved such orgasms with any man in the flesh. When I got married, I was disappointed. Sorry.
Wow.
I tried not to blame my husband, but he just couldn't compare. You see, my spirit lover's penis could expand and enlarge itself until it filled my entire vagina, almost to the point of pain. But oh, what pain. Sorry. What delicious pain. And the act of intercourse could continue until I had come and was sexually satisfied to the point of exhaustion. With a mortal man, a woman gets 1, maybe 2 or 3 chances a night to come. If the man comes fast or is tired, you're out of luck. It's not that way at all with the spirit lover. He just keeps on and on until you're completely satisfied. But my advice to any young female medium is not to get started sexually with any spirit. It'll ruin your chance for happiness with any man on the earth plane. A spirit lover might be able to screw like Pan himself, but he can't keep you warm on cold nights or buy your groceries.
That's gold. That's great.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, that I bet she's a very interesting person.
Right? Who is that?
I know. A male witch told me how he had deliberately set about conjuring up a succubus. I thought how groovy, quote, I thought how groovy it would be if I could have a luscious spirit chick whenever I wanted her. No fuss, no muss, like with a flesh and blood chick. I wouldn't really have to get involved with a spirit doll. He entered into an exhaustive regimen of incantations and conjuration and claims that he succeeded in summoning a succubus that looked like Raquel Welch's big sister. Jesus. Man, she would come some nights when I went through the rituals and we would make it like you would not believe, he said. She was nearly 1,500 years old and she had learned every trick in the books. Maybe her body was kind of cold to the touch, but when I penetrated her vagina, it was like sticking my tool into molten lava.
Damn.
Things ended rather badly for the witch and his cosmic concubine. He decided to go a bit kinky and set up some mirrors so he could have the added sensual pleasure of watching their myriad positions of love reflected again and again. I like his stuff. What he saw in the mirror that night nearly caused him to lose his mind. God, he moaned, clenching his teeth. I still nearly puke whenever I think of it. I was making it with the most god-awful kind of reptilian creature right out of a wino's nightmare. And if it had taken me a long time to summon the beast, you will never guess what I went through getting rid of that toad woman.
Wow.
Good. I love it.
All right. In his book, Eros and Evil, do I have feedback? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
R.E.I. Masters tells of a young woman's bizarre encounter with a female medium with lesbian proclivities. The young woman had prevailed upon the medium for a private sitting after she had attended a number of group seances. The medium agreed after some hesitation, but made it clear that her young client would have to promise to meet all the stipulations. When the young woman arrived for her private sitting, she soon discovered that the first of the medium's conditions was that they should both be completely naked for the session. After they had stripped, they sat down in upholstered chairs and faced one another just a few feet apart. When they had entered the trance state, the young woman was startled to see a strange vapor issuing from the medium's vagina. A vapor that grew rapidly more solid, elongating and taking on a sinuous serpentine form. The young woman was frightened, but at the same time rooted in her chair by a powerful fascination. As she watched the phallic ectoplasmic mass approach her, as if mesmerized, she spread her thighs and permitted the thing to enter her own vagina. As the monstrous substance penetrated deep within her, the young woman felt an icy dread, but at the same time, a kind of unholy pleasure. Then the room began to spin, and the young woman fainted, the ectoplasmic penis, icy cold like an icicle, lodged firmly in her vagina. When she regained consciousness, the medium, bending over her, attempting to force a nipple between the young woman's lips. The seeker of esoteric wisdom was no longer fascinated by the bizarre promise of the private sitting. She managed to extricate herself from the medium's embrace, and grabbing her clothes from a closet, she made her escape. Throughout this book, the author has attempted to demonstrate how Eros sex, denied, frustrated, and repressed, has precipitated the psychic dissociation responsible for alleged supernatural occurrences. This dissociation and mental fragment, motivated by primitive ideas and desires, generally derives its energy source from the erotic recesses of the soul, and being the result of frustrated sexual and creative activity, represents the destructive, the violent, and the perverse side of man's transcendent level of mind. The author has also hoped to establish that this dissociated mental fragment, this projected bundle of repressions, is a product of man's psyche, is thereby capable of ignoring the conventional barriers of time and space. It may behave as a child or an ignorant person and toss objects about the room and mash pieces of furniture. It may form other voices and other personalities. It may personify itself as a demon lover. It may express itself in the grisly psychosis of vampire, werewolf, or ghoul. And we can't leave out details of witch confessions, which often speak of sex with the devil. First, we go to the Scottish witches, Isabel Gowdy and Janet Broadhead, their accounts. Isabel described the devil as a dark, hairy man, very cold. His cum was as cold as well water. He had cloven feet and sometimes even appeared to her as a deer, like a deer man.
Oh, wow.
And Janet Broadhead, from the same era, the same place, also described the devil as big, dark, hairy, very cold. But he would visit her often and have sex with her. He would visit her house while her husband was not there. And he would always give her, she said, I think it said he would visit like every 3 weeks, and that he would always give her a coin afterwards.
Oh, wow.
But that the coin would end up turning like red and it was like worth nothing. It was like fake.
Yeah.
How about that?
It's so funny you said that. I was just reading that Cherokee Little People book.
Yes.
And where they think that these little people lived in Western North Carolina, where they found the tunnels and tons of evidence. This kid in the 1940s found a coin, and there's a picture of it in the book. It is fucking awesome. It's a coin, and the whole coin, I mean, it's like a intricate piece of art, and the whole thing is like an elf. And it's so bizarre to find that in Western North Carolina. This is with pointy ears. This is before Star Trek or anything like that. But it just made me think when I read it how cool and weird it was that it was the one artifact we have of that is this coin, supposedly.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's a total mystery. Yeah, I don't know. I like the symbology of the coin with as like a
token of like
from the other side, that type of thing. It's like here you go. It wasn't a dream.
Yes, I didn't think about it that way. Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
And be heading in that direction next episode, right? That's perfect. And then I can't help but like this witch confession from England, 1645, widow Mary Bush. She said the devil appeared to her in the shape of a young black man by her bed, and he had his way with her body. He was cold and heavy and could not perform well. But she did deny God and gave her blood. And she said that after that, 2 creatures like mice would visit her on a regular basis and suck at her, I guess, her wound from the devil.
Well, it's so bizarre. Why couldn't he perform well? That bothers me.
Well, no, that makes me laugh because most of the other accounts say that like it's an amazing lover. Exactly. And then she's like, he didn't perform well, but she still renounced God. I always laugh about that. Like, okay, Mary.
Wouldn't that turn you off? Wouldn't you say, well, this isn't for me?
He must have not been very devout.
Oh my God. Oh, I listened to that. I'm sorry to.
No, go.
Okay, but that show we listened to, I can't remember what was it, UFO Chronicles, the new one?
Yes.
The chick from North Carolina?
Yes.
It was so good. And she, the thing that stood out for me from the experience was she was not a highly sexual person, and
you got that because she kept saying like, like, I'm not into weird stuff like that, or I would normally let anyone touch me there, like she kept making sure
like the best of her life.
Yeah,
she said it was amazing. She even thought about it afterwards, like
accidentally, like, oh,
like, oh no. Yeah, that was pretty good. Favorite movie of mine is Satanico Pandemonium, a Mexican nunsploitation horror flick from, I think, 1975. Awesome movie that I rewatched for this episode.
I did not watch it. It was What language was it in? It was like the subtitles were even in.
It's in Mexican. It's in Spanish, and it's a Mexican film, and there is no version I know of that's dubbed in English. And the DVD I have is from an awesome company called Mondo Macabre, and it's subtitled. And but yeah, really highly stylistic visual film, awesome occult imagery, great movie. But the movie opens up with a young nun picking flowers in this beautiful village, and her name's Sister Maria, and there's a local village boy, Marcelo, and they stop and have a friendly chat with each other. You can tell there's
attraction.
Well, no, he's adolescent, probably around 13 or something. So there's not really an attraction there, but there's definitely an adoration, mutual adoration. And you can tell the movie's focusing on her, and she's just a good, sweet nun, you know?
Okay.
So, Marcelo walks away, and all of a sudden there's this naked guy standing there.
Shit.
Holding an apple.
And, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, just boom, literally appears. And she freaks out and and runs away back to the convent, you know. And you get back to the convent, you realize this isn't the best life, a nun's life. You know, the nuns are cruel and people are miserable. It's weird.
They show that, right? Like
yeah. And so she's in her room at the convent, and this naked guy appears again, and this really bothers her, but he appears and disappears, and you can tell it upsets her. So she starts to fantasize about him, and you can tell she's really getting crazy horny, visualizing him. And so she flagellates herself, and she puts like a crown of, like, I don't know what you would call it, but almost like barbed wire around her waist.
Oh, okay.
To punish herself. And, you know, it's bleeding and everything. And while she's got this contraption around her, she's whipping herself across the back. And I guess that was a thing, flagellation, punishment, you know, for when you have sexual thoughts, and which is probably most of why it was used. You know, it's like, oh, I can't think this, but anyway, it's awful. And so
I was just thinking of some of the Crowley stuff where I don't know what it's from. I don't know which book. Where kind of to train your mind.
Yeah.
You would either cut yourself. Yeah. Okay. Go.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing. Like, okay, I'm having bad thoughts. Like, okay.
Robert Anton Wilson was saying another way they would do it was to bite their tongue as hard as they could after, like, it's awful. But hey, whatever works, go for it. But so while all this is going on, a fellow sister, a fellow nun, comes into her room or knocks on her door, and she covers herself to hide the scars and all that. And the nun comes in her room and seduces her.
Oh,
And
shit.
yeah.
Here, this is how we handle this, sweetie.
Yeah. And she resists, and finally gives in. And wouldn't you know it, the nun turns into this stranger, this guy. And he tells her, he said, I am Lucifer, I am Luzabel. He uses those names interchangeably, Lucifer and Luzabel. And he says, if you need me, think of me. I'm with you your whole life. And then he disappears, and her scars are healed and everything. So,
shit.
Yeah. So, it's the next day. We're back in the village. Sister Maria's at the pond like the day before. And Marcelo, the village boy, is there fishing, and she comes up on him. And this time, instead of a friendly conversation, she tries to seduce him. She starts kissing him and filling him up, and he freaks out and runs away.
Right.
So,
like, what's wrong with the Sister Maria?
yeah, like, what a change. But so she starts hallucinating. She sees serpents everywhere. She, back at the convent, she tries to seduce another nun. This nun rejects her, and she fucking stabs her in the back. Kills her, then hides the body. So she's really flipped out.
Yeah, shit got extreme.
Yeah, in a short time. She's gone from 1 to 100. But so yeah, she's out of her fucking mind at this point. So she goes to Marcelo's house, and it's so fucked up. This scene is so weird. She goes to Marcelo's house. His mom's like 90 years old, sitting in a chair, so crocheting.
Right.
And she said, she tells his mom she needs to talk to Marcelo, and Marcelo's in bed sleeping. She gets naked, crawls in bed with him. Like, I guess, God. The mom's not looking.
Right, of course, yeah.
and he's asleep.
It's Sister Maria.
Yeah. So she pretty much is raping him. And he wakes up and rejects her. So she stabs him, then burns the fucking house down and goes back to the convent, killing him and his mother, And it's pretty wild. You start seeing a lot of visual things, and you start seeing apples and black cats, lots of symbolism.
Right.
Really, really good symbolism. And so she's back at the convent, and 2 nuns come to her room and tell her about Marcelo and the death and the fire. And she pretends, this is horrible, And she realizes that Marcelo had grabbed her necklace while this was going on. So his corpse has her necklace in his hands. So she goes to where they've stored the bodies at the convent, and opens his casket and takes it back. Well, Mother Superior sees this and confronts her. And she kills her. Yeah, she fucking strangles her and hides the body. And so the next day, it's the big funeral. All the nuns are out at this extravagant outdoor funeral, and the guilt of all the things she's done kind of hits her like an avalanche, and she runs away she runs away from the funeral to a cave. Well, Lucifer shows up and tells her, look, if you accept me, say you accept me, I'll make all this go away. If not, they're going to torture you to death.
Right.
And he gives her a vision of like Inquisition style torture.
Right.
And so the other nuns, she's sitting there thinking about it, and the other nuns come up on her, and she thinks they figured out what's going on and they're gonna get her. Well, instead they ask her to be the new Mother Superior.
Oh, shit.
She says, okay. They all go back to the convent, and they open the doors to like the cafeteria. All the nuns are naked. There's people dancing. There's like a giant feast going on. Naked people are playing instruments. It's just a giant party. And Lucifer shows up and says, hey, you're the leader now. And these are your people, you know. And so she's into it for a little bit. Right. And then I guess the guilt hits her again, and she as she's looking over looking at this scene, and all of a sudden one of the nuns comes up and stabs her in the back, and Lucifer smiles. Yeah. And you see the shit-eating grin on Lucifer's face, like, you know, this is my work. And, yeah, so she's stabbed. She struggles back to her room and collapses. And fade to 3 nuns showing up at her room, at the door to her room, and they're discussing, oh, how sad it is that Maria has been so sick that she succumbed to the plague and finally died. What? Yeah, I'm probably not explaining this well. I've had way too much coffee, but what had happened was the whole movie was a hallucination.
That's what I'm thinking when you said that.
Yeah. Sister Maria was suffering from the plague and hallucinated the whole movie. And Mother Superior is there and says how they'll plan her funeral, and then it cuts to Marcello and his mother walking by and paying their respects. Wow. And the nuns sing, and the last scene is Lucifer walking by with an apple with his eyes on another nun.
The plague continues.
Yeah. I loved it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a good movie.